Good morning all and welcome to the session. The aim of the session is to have a look at chapter 26 of the AS Law textbook. It's the last chapter for the law of tort for AS level, and I'm just going to go through the basic principles of compensation. So as I've normally done in the past, I'm just going to go through the slides and then I'm going to ask you to prepare some basic notes by doing some reading on that particular chapter. So the first point is what are damages? Fairly straightforward. Damages is simply a compensatory award given to the claimant who successfully proves their case on a balance of probabilities in a court of law. So if you have an accident and you can show that the defendant was at fault, it's very likely that you get an award of monetary compensation. As we've spoken about in the past, there are different types of compensation. You can have an injunction, you can have monetary compensation, or you can have specific performance. But for our purposes at AS level or year one of the A level course, we just need to concentrate on money compensation. Right, the next point is to have a look at the availability of damages or money compensation. So under what circumstances may you be able to successfully claim money compensation? You're looking at personal injury or damage to property. So they're the two key areas to which a claimant may successfully claim monetary compensation for. Right, next point is to identify why the courts give damages to a claimant, and the aim or purpose of damages is fairly straightforward. It's to put the injured person back into the position they would have been in had the civil wrong or tort not taken place. So if you have a car accident and you sustain an injury, then it's very likely that you would receive money compensation, and the aim of that money compensation is to at least ease the pain and suffering that you might have gone through based on the accident that you suffered. So that's the aim of damages. The next point is to do with the types of loss that you might encounter. So the first type of loss is what we call pecuniary loss, which is simply to do with the loss where you claim an amount of monetary compensation for. So if you have a car accident, then it's very likely that monetary compensation may be suitable to solve the problem that you've been through based on somebody else's negligence, for example. So that's what pecuniary loss is all about. It's monetary compensation to make better the injury that you might have suffered based on somebody else's negligence. Non-pecuniary losses are simply to do with the distress or disappointment, or what we call loss of amenity, that you might have suffered as a result of going through an accident. So if you have an accident, it may be that you may not be able to play a particular sport that you used to enjoy. You may not be able to go to work for a period of time. These are all referred to as non-pecuniary losses, and the courts deal with that differently as opposed to monetary losses or pecuniary losses, where you can claim money compensation for the injuries that you sustained. Right, in terms of damages, there are two main types. So you have special damages and you have general damages. And special damages are simply to do with where the courts can calculate specifically your compensatory award. So again, if we use a car accident, the damages that you get are calculated up until the date of the trial, because that would be known. So if you've got a broken leg or a broken torso or back, then the compensation you get is based on what is known at the time in terms of your injuries. It's very likely that your injuries may carry on after the date of the trial, and that's when we move on to what we call general damages. And general damages are normally an amount of compensation to deal with the injuries that you sustained after the date of the trial, because those injuries may not have healed up. So you might have had an accident 2 years ago. The date of the trial was 6 months after the accident, but what happens a year after the date of the trial? Are you still suffering? Are you still in pain? That could be the case. So general damages anticipate the help that you might need based on the injuries you sustained. Okay? So that's normally calculated after the date of the trial. It's speculative in nature because we don't know exactly how much money might solve your problem. So that's calculated differently and based on a periodic basis, and then the courts look at how well you're recovering and then decide whether you still need compensation or not. Right, now, so to help with general damages, the courts deal with something called structured settlement under the Damages Act 1996. So that simply takes into account what sort of help you might need after the trial date. And this is reviewed on either a 6-monthly basis or an annual basis. It depends on the insurance company paying out the structured settlement, but it simply means that you get an amount of money over a period of time until your injuries are fully healed. Right, and the last point for this particular topic is to do with mitigation of loss, and this is simply a legal concept that suggests that in order to claim compensation as a claimant, the court would want to see that the claimant has done something to lessen the effects of harm or damage caused to them by the defendant. So in other words, you have to show that you're helping out the defendant in a way. So if, for example, the defendant has caused an accident and therefore you're struggling to walk, and you normally drive to work, the courts would anticipate that you wouldn't necessarily use hire a taxi every day because that would be too expensive. You might try and use the bus, which is slightly cheaper, and then you can claim full compensation. So mitigation of loss simply refers to the claimant, who is in the right in the first place, helping out the defendant by reducing the impact of the actions of the defendant. So as I say, if it means that because of your injuries you can't drive your own car, then you wouldn't necessarily hire a taxi every day. That would be too expensive. You'd get on the bus, which is less expensive, and then you go to court and sue the defendant for compensation, and the courts would appreciate that at least you've mitigated your losses. You've lessened the effect of the injury caused to you by the defendant. And that is a quick summary of chapter 26, which is to do with damages or remedies in the law of tort. If you've got any questions, then Microsoft Teams, you can put any queries that you have. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you again soon.